What if one ancient page, buried for centuries beneath Egyptian sand, hinted that Jesus of Nazareth shared a secret bond too intimate for the councils of Rome to tolerate? What if that same text dared to name Mary Magdalene not as a repentant sinner, but as something far closer, a companion chosen in ways the official Gospels never admit? Imagine the weight of that claim, the suggestion that an entire branch of early Christian memory was clipped from history's tree. Tonight you open that forbidden manuscript. Its ink has faded, but the question it asks has not who tried to silence it and why. Now let the urgency drain from your pulse. Breathe in the desert night, where those papyrus leaves once slept beneath crumbling jars. The frantic whisper of scandal fades into the slow hush of drifting sand. Together, we will follow the trail backward from a modern discovery to a story older than cathedrals. You're seated in a quiet room where the only light comes from a single reading lamp, its glow settling like candle flame across the spine of a thick, time-stained codex. A breeze moves faintly against the curtain, carrying the dry scent of dust and parchment, as if the desert itself has followed you home. On these fragile pages lies a gospel that almost slipped through history's fingers, the Gospel of Philip. Lost for more than 1,500 years, it surfaced in 1945 when Egyptian farmers split open a sealed jar and found 13 codices wrapped in brittle leather. The text they uncovered would provoke decades of scholarly debate and spark 1,000 hushed speculations about Jesus and Mary Magdalene. Before we venture further into the shadows, take a moment to subscribe so you never miss a secret that history has tried to forget. It was not a scholar, not a monk, not even a treasure hunter who stumbled upon the forgotten whispers of the Gospel of Philip. It was a farmer named Muhammad al-Saman, a man digging for fertilizer in the baking Egyptian sun near the village of Nag Hammadi. The year was 1945, and with his pickaxe he struck something harder than soil. At first it looked like nothing, a plain clay jar sealed and unmarked, but curiosity, as it often does, got the better of him. Fearing jinn yet unable to resist, he broke the jar open. What emerged was not gold, but a tightly packed bundle of papyrus codices bound in leather and crumbling with age. Inside those pages waited a collection of writings not seen since the earliest centuries of Christianity. Among them, hidden like a thorn in the side of orthodoxy, was the Gospel of Philip. The codices were quietly smuggled into the black market, sold in pieces passed from hand to hand, with little regard for their explosive content. Some were stored in a Coptic priest's closet, others languished in antique shops or private drawers. It wasn't until years later that scholars realized what had been found. And even then, it took time, patience, and the efforts of specialists in Coptic and early Christianity to decipher the meanings within. The Gospel of Philip, written in Sahidic Coptic on rough papyrus, was not easy reading. Its phrasing was mystical, cryptic, and elliptical, like decoding a dream someone else forgot to finish. And yet one phrase stood out like a sharp intake of breath. Mary Magdalene, it read, was the companion of the Savior. This was not just linguistic ornamentation. The word used, koinonos, suggested a bond far deeper than friendship. In other texts, it referred to spiritual union, shared purpose, and at times physical intimacy. It challenged centuries of ecclesiastical doctrine with the delicacy of one faded line. If this gospel was authentic, if the dating proved accurate, it could mean that some among the early Christians saw Mary not as a mere witness or reformed prostitute, but as something far more threatening to the patriarchal order, a chosen partner, perhaps even a bride. But even before such conclusions could be drawn, the discovery itself sent ripples through academia. For centuries, the Church had claimed that its canon, 4 Gospels and no more, was sufficient. Anything beyond that was heresy, deviation, apocrypha. And now here lay a stack of papyri resting awkwardly in a Cairo museum and in photocopies sent to scholars abroad, whispering a different story entirely. It wasn't just the Gospel of Philip. Alongside it were the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Truth, and a strange symbolic text known as the Apocryphon of John. These writings, many of them attributed to Gnostic communities, seemed less concerned with sin and redemption than with hidden knowledge, divine sparks, and the recovery of inner light. Salvation, they implied, came not from blind belief, but from awakening. And central to many of these visions was a recurring figure, Mary Magdalene, who received teachings others were denied. The historical fact remains clear. In 1945, 13 codices were unearthed near Nag Hammadi, representing over 50 distinct works, many of them previously unknown to the modern world. It was one of the most important manuscript discoveries of the 20th century, rivaled only by the Dead Sea Scrolls. But while the Qumran scrolls illuminated the world of Second Temple Judaism, the Nag Hammadi texts unveiled a spectrum of early Christianity that had been deliberately pruned, censored, and in many cases obliterated. Among the more obscure details often overlooked is the role of political timing. Just 1 year after the discovery in 1946, the United Nations passed a resolution to partition Palestine. War loomed, colonial powers were retreating, and national identities were being redrawn. In the midst of this geopolitical chaos, a gospel that questioned the very foundation of Christian orthodoxy quietly entered the scholarly bloodstream. Its arrival was not met with fanfare, but with hesitant secrecy and, in some corners, resistance. One open debate still simmers around the intentions of those who buried the codices. Were these gospels hidden by monks who wished to preserve them from imperial destruction? Or had they already been branded heretical, sealed away by those who feared what they said? The binding, the careful wrapping, and the jar's protective seal suggest reverence. But the motive, fear, or faith remains an open question. And then there is the curious matter of the missing pieces. The Gospel of Philip, like many others in the Nag Hammadi library, is incomplete, though sections are torn, phrases missing, entire ideas vanishing into lacunae. What did those lost words contain? More detailed descriptions of Mary's role.